We are on Middot Perek Bet, Mishnah Vav, 6th Mishnah in the second chapter of Masechet Middot. This is actually the last Mishnah in the second chapter of Masechet Middot. So we're still talking about the Ezrat HaNashim, the women's section. The Ezrat HaNashim, if we just look at our map from above, right? This is the Ezrat HaNashim, and we describe these steps and all the different offices in the last Mishnah. It says the Mishnah, Ulishakot hayu tachat Ezrat Yisrael. There were offices under Ezrat Yisrael. Uptuchor the Ezrat HaNashim. Because remember, let's go back to our chart, right? These steps are an elevation. So therefore, over here, we're going to see there are lishakot, these offices, clay shir, we're going to see in our model even better. Okay, they were open to the Ezrat Nashim, and they were under Ezrat Yisrael. Where is the Ezrat Yisrael? I'm sorry, going back and forth. We'll look here. Ezrat Yisrael is right here. We're going to see that Ezrat Yisrael is this area. This is Ezrat Yisrael right here. Right? So you walk in, the Israelites were allowed to come here. And then the Kohanim, this area was Ezrat Kohanim. So you Israelim were not allowed to come back this point. So you climb up these steps, you go into these doors, the Sha'arei Nikanor, and you go into Ezrat Yisrael. So, therefore, since it was elevated, let's go to our 3D model. Let's go back to our 3D model for a second, our very, very handy 3D model. Okay, we're going to turn it around. And here you can see, since how elevated these steps were, remember each one was half an amma, so it was 7.5 amot elevation. Here are the lishakot, I don't want to go too far, here are these offices, right? I guess for the clay zemra. I don't know if he did it, how what happens if you go in. I don't know if he knows, but it was under the Ezrat Yisrael. Here are these offices, okay, for the clay shir. Let's go back to, I want to now go bird's eye out, because we're going to need it we're going to need to move in a little bit. So let's go back to the Mishnah. Okay, Shama, what would they use? They were open to the Ezrat Nashim. Sheshama levi'im notnim kinarot unevalim umitzal time. There the Levim would place their kinarot. Kinor is a harp. Nevel, I always get this mixed up. Mitzal time are the cymbals. Okay, the harp, the lai, whatever, the guitar, the piano, v'chol klei shir, and all of their musical instruments. Ezrat, they had to have a place to store their gear, back to every musician. So then you have Ezrat Yisrael. Ezrat Yisrael haita orech 135. It was 135 wide, long, as they say. Arochav achadesrei. Okay, by 11. So this is 11 by 135. 135 here by 11. Okay. V'chein Ezrat Kohanim, same thing. Ezrat Kohanim hay orech 135, the same 135. Al Rochav achadesrei. Again, 135 by 11. That was the Ezrat Kohanim as well. Let's see 1 second. Let's go back. Right. This is Ezrat Kohanim. The rest of it, this is Ezrat Kohanim. This is Ezrat Yisrael, and of course Beit Mitpachaim. This is where they did the avodah and the ramp and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So let's go back to that Mishnah. V'rashei pispesim avdilim bein Ezrat Yisrael Ezrat Kohanim. There were rashei pispesim. Remember, we learned the rashei pispesim where they were like pieces that stuck out of the floor or of the walls. I also saw another perush. I think the Bartanura says, or maybe the Kahati says it, that refers to pispesim was like pesifas. You know what pesifas is? It's stonework. You know, pesifas are the tile work. So they were tile work that would show you stop here, Ezrat Yisrael. That makes sense to me, actually, because then it was in the floor to divide between Ezrat Yisrael and Ezrat Kohanim. Right. Okay, that the Kahati says, right. Some say it's a mechisha shel avenei pasifas. It was tile work. Why? Because Yisraelim were not permitted to enter Ezrat Kohanim unless they needed to do smicha u'tenufa. Right. If you had a korban, so then it will let you go into Ezrat Kohanim to do your korban work. But otherwise, only Ezrat Yisrael. And this was only for the Kohanim. The Mishnah continues. So that we have Pesifas. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov, and Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov says, no. Ma'aleh haytasham. There was an elevation, ugvoha amma. Meaning Ezrat Kohanim was an amma above, an elevation above. V'haduchan natun aleha. And the duchan is the platform that Levim would do shira on, was on it. Uba shalosh ma'alot shel chatzi amma. And on that platform was 3 steps. So therefore, nimtzeit Ezrat Kohanim gavoa me'Ezrat Yisrael. So the Ezrat Kohanim was taller than Ezrat Yisrael, 2.5 amot. So let's look over here in our 3D model, and you can see the way he did it. I actually don't agree necessarily with him the way he did it here. Okay, because I'm not sure why he did it this way. If we just move back, if we try to move and see, right, he made one big step, but and then he says the duchan sort of is facing Ezrat Yisrael. So therefore, everyone agrees that the Ezrat Yisrael was that Ezrat Kohanim, was that this area, if we're looking from above, was this area was 2.5 amot higher than this area. But if you look at the Machon HaMikdash on their pictures, you can see it's the other way around. They have that the Duchan is facing the Mizbeach, facing the Kohanim. So it's an interesting question because therefore you see it's an elevated Amah between this area and then 3 steps, and because that area. So if I knew why Ford Shem was, I would ask him, why did he decide, what made him think that the Duchan, which way did the Duchan face? Did it face, this way? Did it face the Kohanim, or did it face Ezrat Yisrael? It's so small, it's hard to believe that the Kohanim would sing in that direction. Who are they singing to? Who's the audience? I'm not really sure. Send me an email. People have been sending me lovely emails and WhatsApps recently. Okay, the Mishnah continues. Nimsei, turns out Ezrat Kohanim gvoha Ezrat Yisrael shtei amot umechsa. So it was the Ezrat Kohanim was higher above Ezrat Yisrael 2.5 amot. Kol azara ita orech 187 arochav 135. So whole azara, the whole area was 187 by 135. So if we go here, this is 100. You do the measurements. I'm sure they figured it out. 187 by 135. The length 187 by 135. 13 bounds. Why 13 bounds? Abba Yossi ben Chanan Omer said Rabbi Yossi ben Chanan Keneged 13 Sharmim. There were 13 gates. What were they? Sha'arim Adromim Hasmuchim Lema'arav. The southern gates, okay, from the west. Sha'ar Elyon, Sha'ar Hadelek, Sha'ar HaBecharot, Sha'ar Hamayim. Let's look back at our map. Okay, Sha'ar Elyon, Sha'ar Delek, Sha'ar Becharot, and Sha'ar Mayim. So we're just going through the gates that we know about. We've seen them before. Okay, why did they call it V'lama Nikra Shemo Sha'ar Mayim? Why was it called Sha'ar Mayim? Shebo Machnisim Tzlochit Shel Mayim Shel Nisuch Hamayim, because that was the gate through which they brought in the tzlochit, the little flask of water for the pouring of the water for Nisuch Hamayim on Sukkot and Chol HaMoed. Rabbi Yaakov said there's another reason. Ubo Mayim Mifachim. Through that gate, the water is Mayim Mifachim. We're going to see this is a quote from Yechezkel. Yechezkel, Perak Mem Zayin, he has visions of the Beit HaMikdash. Vayishiveni al petach habayit. He brought me back to the door of the house. V'nei Mayim yotzi mitachat miftan habayit kadima. Water came out of the threshold of the eastward. Kibnei habayit kadim. For the forefront of the house looked toward the east. So if we look down, we're going to see what's eastward here. Let's go back out a little bit. Remember, this is the east. So this is the eastmost gate. So the water is going out towards the east. Let's go back to Yechezkel. The waters came down from under the right side, the south of the altar. Right, we're looking north to south. He took me out of this northern gate. Took me around. Okay, by way of the gate that looked toward the east. The water of Mifachim trickled forth. Mina katefa yemanit. From the right shoulder. That's Mayim Mifachim. Says Rabbi Eliezer. Let's go back to our Mishnah. Says Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. No, that is the shar, that Mayim Mifachim. That's the water that trickles. Va'atidim liyot yotzim mitachat miftan habayit. And that's the water that flows under the miftan. That's exactly the way Yechezkel describes it. The water coming out of the miftan habayit. Okay, Mina, did he say that? Found a mitachat miftan habayit kadima. So the Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says that's why it's called Sha'ar Hamayim, because that's where Yechezkel saw the water dripping out of or seeping out of. Ulu matam betzafon smuchim lema'arav. Corresponding those gates in the north. That's going to be closer to us. Sha'ar Yechanya, Sha'ar Korban, Sha'ar Hanashim, Sha'ar Hashir. Okay, where are we? Sha'ar Ha. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can see it. Okay. Sha'ar Nitzotz, they call it. Korban, Nashim, and Shir. So we call it Beit HaNitzotz. So why do they call it Sha'ar Nitzotz? Interesting. V'lama nikra Sha'ar Yechanya. Okay, why is it called Sha'ar Nechanya? Shebo yatsa Yechanya begaluto. That's when Yechanya was exiled and he left through that gate. So why did they call it Sha'ar Nitzotz? The Kati says we'll find out in a little bit. Sheba Mizrach Sha'ar Nikanor. The Sha'ar Nikanor, that was the big gate. This is Sha'ar Nikanor. So that's the gate at the east of the Beit HaMikdash. And finally, Ushnei Pishpashim Ayulo, it had 2 small mini gates to the side. Echad miyamino ve'echad mismolo. Ushnayim b'ma'arav lo haya lehem shem. 2 in the west did not have a name. Let's just look. You'll see the Sha'ar Nikanor. I want to see, it's worthwhile to see the Sha'ar Nikanor. And to see, let's move it close, the Sha'ar Nikanor, and to see here are the Pishpashim, here are the gates for that Sha'ar. All right, we have very long. It's a long Mishnah. We'll stop here, dedicate our learning to the memory of my father, Harav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. All right, make it a great day.